Welcome back. It's 7:41. They cost the NHS millions of pounds every year, but soon so-called health tourists could be forced to pay up.
Yes, the government wants to crack down on foreigners who benefit from free treatment on the NHS.
It's the £200 million question. How to stop the NHS cheats the government say we can't afford to pay for. Everyone is entitled to free emergency care, but many people come to the UK specifically for treatment they cannot get or afford at home. Bimbo Ayalabola gave birth to quintuplets on a family visit from Nigeria at a cost to the NHS of £200,000, and she's not alone. Maternity services, specialist eye, cancer and heart treatment are worst hit by health tourism. A recent investigation found health tourists come mostly from Nigeria, followed by Poland, British expats, Portugal and Bangladesh. Estimates put the cost at anywhere between £12 and £200 million, the equivalent of up to 6,500 nurses. But the Department of Health admits it may never know the true cost.
Well, in our online poll this morning, we asked if you thought people who didn't live in Britain should pay before having NHS treatment. So far, 95% of you, overwhelming, think that they should.
We're joined now by Julia Manning from the medical think tank 2020 Health, who conducted this research, and leading Danes from the charity Doctors of the World. So, Julia, it looks like most of our viewers are agreeing with your proposals that health tourists should pay and we need to crack down on this. Why do you think it is so important to tackle?
They're right to have concerns, and as your report pointed out, we actually don't know how much is being spent on foreigners coming here. No one has been counting. No government has been brave enough to say we need to know how much is being spent.
But even the biggest figure, the £200 million estimate, is still only a tiny proportion of the NHS budget, though, isn't it?
It is, but those are the invoices that we know have not been paid. What about all the people who haven't been invoiced in the first place and they weren't eligible for treatment? I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not into billions, but we don't actually know. So it's important that we do try and find out how much we're spending. And that's important because we have a finite NHS budget that we know is coming under more and more strain. We know in the next 10 years we've got to find an extra at least 28 billion just to meet the needs of our own population.
So, Lee, it's a finite budget. We have an NHS that's struggling. Why should we pay for people who have not contributed in their taxes? Why should we pay for their care?
Well, viewers are quite correct. Of course, those who can pay should pay. According to the Department of Health, the best estimates are the National Health Service spent about £33 million last year treating foreign nationals. It was unable to recover about £12 million of that amount. That's a significant sum. But actually, it's only 0.01% of a £107 billion National Health Service budget.
So why is it in our interest to pay for people who haven't contributed to the system?
Well, I think foreign visitors who come here, the evidence is very slim. In our experience at Doctors of the World, we're an international humanitarian health charity running for 7 years a clinic in East London. In our experience, our patients have lived in the UK for at least 3 years before coming forward for medical care. Less than 2% say they left their country of origin for personal health reasons. So I think there's some work to be done to really challenge this myth of rampant health tourism to the UK when the evidence is so very, very slim.
Julia, aside from our poll, we've had people who would agree with Lee. Lauren Clark, for example, says, I think the reason our country is great is because we care. We help people who are ill or in pain. Can you imagine leaving someone in pain because they can't afford the medical bill? My answer is no. And a couple of other people say those things as well.
I'm not advocating that at all, but we mustn't confuse compassion with sentimentality. And again, your report pointed out
what does that mean? Those words sound clever, but you've got someone in pain who needs treatment. How do you save money if you don't refuse their care?
Well, as your report pointed out, if you have an emergency, if you have a condition which is contagious, you're going to get treatment and you're not going to be turned away. There's a hospital in West London, which is not that far from Heathrow, which has a system of taking people in, stabilising them and then discharging, not actually taking on their long-term medical care. And it's important that we get systems in place and that doctors feel that they're not being pressured and not being threatened with human rights legislation, which many doctors have told us that they are being, if they turn people away. So doctors need to feel that they have got the protection and cover to be able to say, actually, you're not eligible, we can't treat you unless you pay up front.
Quite, Lee, and it wouldn't be hard to administer, would it? It wouldn't even have to be doctors doing it.
Well, there is already a charging regime in place for those who are ineligible to free National Health
And
Service
with dentists as
care.
well and other things.
Exactly. So that system must be made to work much harder so that we can recoup these lost costs to the National Health Service. There's absolutely no need to introduce new bureaucracy, which, although we can all be very proud of our National Health Service, hasn't had a good track record of it implementing costly, expensive, complicating IT systems which are likely to fail. The doctor is not a border official. We're not immigration officers. Our first duty is to treat the patient we see without discrimination.
OK.
But nor should they be colluding with fraud, which is what they're doing at the moment.
OK.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much
It's
indeed.
a very good discussion. Thanks very much indeed.